Hey YouTube, I'm out in the shop this morning and I thought I'd do another welding video, this time on MIG welding. Now what I have here is my father's 115 volt MIG welder. It's a Millermatic 35, Millermatic 135, 90 amp MIG welder. It says 130 amp, but if you look real closely in the owner's manual, it only puts out 90 amp. Here's the MIG gun, the nozzle, and the argon bottle and regulator. And here's the valve you use to turn the argon on. Let me uncover this fitting. Now, when you first get your MIG welder, whether it be a Miller, Lincoln, Hobart, Harbor Freight, whatever, if you weld with gas, for typical mild steel like 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, 3/16, auto body, sheet metal, anything in that range of metal, you're going to want a gas mixture of, let me move my welding gloves, you're going to want a gas mixture of 75-25, that is 75% argon, 25% carbon dioxide, or CO2. Now, this is, if you look on the seal right here, well, I don't know how well you can see that, it says it's a non-flammable gas. This will not catch fire. It's non-combustible, it's not like acetylene, but this valve up here, let me shut this off. This valve up here has the same characteristics as a valve on an oxygen bottle. If you've ever used a cutting torch, you know how to operate an oxygen valve. An argon valve is very much the same as an oxygen valve. As far as when you crack this valve, see this gold thing? This is what's called a T-screw. Now a T-screw is when you back it in and you have the gas turned on. This is what gets your gas flowing. But when you first turn the gas on, turn the argon valve on at the top of your tank, you want to make sure this is backed out. Not completely, but to where it turns very loosely, to where there's no excess pressure on it whatsoever. Because if you open it and you got it so tight that it won't move, and you open this valve here, it's going to shoot basically a breath, I call it a breath, a burst of gas into that T-screw and into the regulator housing right here. Now over time, if you have this regulator backed in constantly, after so many bursts of gas, so much pressure, it's going to make your regulator fail. Now, this tank is not full. I think it's the internet and on welding forums. They just got a MIG welder, or they're new to welding, and they'll ask me, what does PSI stand for? Pounds per square feet. That means if you're running, let's say, you're running 15 psi, no matter what gas it is, whether it be acetylene, oxygen, well, oxygen is not a gas, it's an oxidizer. If you'd be running oxygen, argon, propane, propylene, whatever, acetylene, MAP gas, whatever, if you're running 15 psi, you're running 15 pounds of gas per square inch, per square feet, per hour. Now, as I say, argon is non-flammable, non-combustible, cannot hurt you whatsoever. Well, what we're going to discuss next will hurt you. You see this? Not the orange thing, that's just a cylinder cap. You see that little brass piece there with a hole in it? If your regulator should explode or fail, that brass piece has a, that looks like a 1/4 inch hole drilled in it. It may be larger, I'm not sure. This, all the gas, no matter what kind of gas it is, it's going to escape through that brass piece and that hole. Now, if you're like this, when you open your bottle, looking at the regulator, make sure the needles move, with your face right up against it, you're doing that wrong. Because if you crack that valve and your regulator fails, this brass piece here is going to shoot out of here like a round out of a rifle. And it'll go through both sides of you without stopping. I've seen pictures on the internet. I've seen it go through a cement wall. That's why when I crack my valve, I stand off to the side. I look away. I just slowly crack it. I look away. I don't need to see the needles move that bad. I'd rather have my face. I'd rather have my face intact than knowing that my regulator's okay. Because you can always get another regulator, but you can't get another set of eyes if that brass piece destroys your eyesight. If it flies into your eye and destroys your eye, you can always get another regulator. You can't get another set of eyes. Now, cracking the valve. What you're going to want to do is always reach down here, turn my machine on, and stand off to the side, and just slowly very slowly crack that. And it's open. You can open, rule of thumb is you can open non-flammable gases all the way, but stuff like propane, propylene, MAP gas, acetylene, rule of thumb is you only want to open that like a quarter turn, because your shit's burning like your regulator's on fire and melting. You don't want to be sitting there going like this all this time while shit's burning. You just want to get out of there. As you can see, we have a gas hose that connects from the regulator to the machine. I don't know how well you can see that a little bit. And that hose, when you put pressure on this regulator, that hose feeds the gas into the back of the machine. Now, as you can see, when I open the argon bottle, this regulator moved. Now, I don't know how well you can see that. Right now, that's a little bit under 100 psi. When an argon tank's fully filled, it's somewhere around 1,500 or 2,000 psi. Now, what are these gauges here? One is a flow gauge, one is a pressure gauge. The flow gauge tells you how much you have flowing through the gas hose and through the regulator. So as I said before, if it reads 15 or 20 psi, you have 15. Well, wait a minute. If it reads 15 psi, you have 15 pounds of gas flowing through the tank per hour. 15 cubic feet, or 15 CFH. Now, if you have 20 cubic feet of gas per hour flowing through the hose and the regulator. And pressure gauge, as I've said before, this basically shows you how much gas you have left in the tank. Now, as I said, mine's a little under 100 psi. So what we're going to do is, a lot of people ask, what flow rate is right for MIG welding? Well, depending on the type of metal, the type of situation, where you're at, if you're outside, if the wind's blowing, if it's, you know, just if it's snowing, which you don't use a MIG welder in the snow. Flux core is better. Flux core or stick is better suited for that, outdoor work. But it depends on the position you're in. If you're flat, horizontal, vertical, overhead, it's going to depend on a bunch of factors. But for most things, most home shop welders, a flow rate of 20, 25, 30 CFH is all you're going to need for most things. Now, what you're going to do is take the T-screw, take your hand, take your fingers, and slowly back it in. You'll feel it kind of stop. And as you can see, it's on a little over 15 psi. Now, for me, I MIG welded about 20 CFH. So, you see, it's almost on 25. Well, you think I'd put it on 20, wouldn't you? Well, watch what happens. Oh, hold on. I gotta back it off just a hair. And it's just about right on 20 psi. A little bit off, but it really don't matter. Now, as you can hear, that hissing means we got gas coming in. Now, I'm going to go get my side cuts and trim that excess wire, and I'll show you how to bleed the line. I'm bleeding the lines as is, which when you're done with your project or you're at the end of a day, end of a job, and you want to go in the house or wherever you're at, and you bleed off, you turn the machine, well, you don't turn the machine off yet. You turn the machine off and bleed off the excess gas that's still in the hose, the gas hose, and the MIG gun hose. Now what you're going to want to do is, even though you turn it off, you'll stand to the side. You're going to take the argon valve and just very slowly turn it to your left. Make sure it's good. It's good and off. It's off. But you see these needles? That's still reading 100 psi. That's still reading 20 CFH. What you're going to want to do, still stand off to the side, take your hand, snip this wire. We'll start reading line. You take your hand and you twist it so it becomes very tight. And you got the valve off. Make sure you got your argon valve off. Now this valve is not right-handed threads or nothing. It's just lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. Now what you're going to want to do is make sure both your gauges, well, see, both your gauges, that one's still at a little bit over 100 psi. So it's almost 500 psi. Then you're going to want to see your flow gauge is maxed out. You have the maximum potential gas flowing through it right now. Now, if your gauge is off, not your gauge, your valve is off, you want to take your MIG gun, pull the trigger, pull it till you don't hear the hissing anymore. And that's what's left of the excess gas. I just bled it off the line. Pull the trigger for about 5 or 10 seconds till you don't hear the hissing sound of the gas. That tells me that I successfully shut down the valve, shut down the regulator. And as you can see, remember that gauge, that needle was at a little under 500 psi, and that gauge was maxed out. Well, they're both back at zero now. So the valve's turned off. The lines are bled. The needles are back down at zero. Now what you're going to want to do, take the side cuts, because your welders like mine, any welder's going to do this. Unless you have a purge option on your machine. I know some welders do, like Hobarts. You're going to want to, if you have excess wire sticking out, you're going to want to trim that back to the original length. Lay the gun down, and you're going to take this T-screw, take your hand, back it out. Turn the machine off. You turn the machine off too. You back it out. till it turns very loosely. I'll make sure the valve's off, your needles read 0, make sure you have no gas left in the line. If you're just starting out, you're going to want to take and screw your regulator on with a adjustable wrench. Screw all your hoses up, and then get a bottle of dish soap with some soapy water. Get a spray bottle, and spray these connections, like right here, and down here where the gas hose feeds gas into the machine. If you get soap suds on any of these connections, that means you have a leak somewhere. So you'll have to go back and retighten your connections to make sure you don't lose no argon. And never leave the garage, and never leave until you've bled the lines off. Because I didn't do it one night. I lost a whole tank of argon in the process. So always bleed your lines off. I hope this video helps somebody out. I hope you enjoyed it, and please rate, comment, and subscribe for more.